I think the coolest part. Click on the little sandwich button, scroll down, you can see your members, all the events, but the mini master classes, that's what's going to set this apart, along with the master classes that are coming. But now you can click on the mini master class that you like. It's broken down into sections. You've got the process here. You can scroll down, watch the video if you want. They're not very long, they're about 5 minutes each. And you can go and click on the PDF, and there you have all the notes for that specific mini master class. To me,
Agents Podcast.
I think every real estate agent on the planet, and if you don't fall into this category, you can just stop listening, but I don't think anybody can say it, would love to increase their average sales price. They want to get into luxury. You want to sell more homes at a higher price point. It's natural, right? It's more efficient, make more money, doing less work, potentially. And I've got the perfect guest, who was a guest, by the way, going all the way back to 2019, episode 19. By the way, we ran into each other at a recent event. We were both speaking there, and I thought, Michael, we've got to redo this again. It's been too long. And now here we are doing feels like 500 events together over the next 30 days. So we're going to get our fill, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to be talking to Michael LaFido today. Many of you know him. Obviously, he is a luxury specialist. He has got a platform where he teaches this called Lux. He flies all over the country and speaks. He does CE. I mean, what don't you do, Michael? Welcome back to the Lab Coat Agents podcast.
Hey, I appreciate it, man. So I was episode 19, and
19.
fast forward, and you guys are cranking these out.
You know, now we are at, well, I'm not sure what your episode will be, but the most recent was 176. And so this is going to probably be one of the 180s. Yeah.
Wow. How many you guys produce in a month? 4?
Yeah. One a week. One
a week. Yeah. Yeah. So when I started ours, Luxury Listing Specials podcast, we were doing 2 a month. We just launched our 200th episode a few weeks back. So we're doing 4 a month as well now. So that's great. Keep it up.
Awesome. So you've been at this longer than we have then, I guess.
Yeah, but you guys are gaining traction quicker because we started out doing 2 a month for the first couple of years.
That's awesome, man. So, let's rewind the clock here. I'm not going to assume everybody knows you. I think a lot do, but not everybody probably does. So tell us your story. How'd you get into the business, and what led you to where you are today?
Yeah. So abbreviated version, I was a part-time real estate agent and a full-time high school teacher. And the only reason I got into real estate is I had a deck cleaning and staining business, Jeff. During the summers as a teacher, I was a high school health and PE teacher and a football coach and a couple of years of wrestling. And we were cleaning and staining a gentleman's deck. Last name was Darfler, still remember. And Darfler owned Darfler Realty, unbeknownst to us. And he said, hey, have you ever thought about getting into real estate? You'd be great at it. One of our top agents is a teacher locally here, and you got great personal skills and you're motivated, yada, yada, yada. So within 4 months, I was licensed. But 2000 to 2010, I was a part-time agent. But I did launch my speaking career in 2008 at a Women's Council Realtors event because I was a very top producing agent. I was the second leading producer for the entire Midwest from one of the top 20 franchises out there at the time, Realty Executives. And so I naturally started to have people approaching me saying, hey, Mike, we hear you're a gym teacher and you're crushing it. What are you doing? And the market shifting. And so that's how we started our speaking. And then I started creating products to help educate agents, right? I was an educator by nature, so motivate and educate. And then in 2014, 15, we made the shift to still educating, but more in the luxury upper price points. And we launched our luxury designation in 2016. And here we are today.
That's phenomenal. Lots of questions, but I have to go all the way back to the PE teacher because I have some friends that are PE teachers, and I tease them all the time. I'm like, like, what an amazing career. It just seems low stress, other than maybe some a-hole kids. But it's not, it's fun. I would argue, as a student, it was my favorite class. I think a lot of people could attest to that, especially the more athletic ones. Tell me about being a PE teacher. I mean, is it what we, as on the outside looking in, perceive it to be?
Was for me, because I was pretty active, right? So it's been, I think, 13 years since I've run a marathon, but I run 11 marathons. I was active. I wasn't one of these gym teachers, which I had a guy I taught with that would tell the kids to run a couple laps and he couldn't run a lap himself, right?
Wow.
So it's the same thing as a trainer and speaker. I've walked the walk and talked the talk, right? I'm in the trenches. And so I was active. I'll never forget, I had a junior, senior, it was at the time a boys team class. So it was an elective class, and girls could have been in it, but it's all boys. And it was baseball, and we told the kids to bring their mitts, but we supplied some mitts, and it was a regulation size baseball, but it was a little bit softer, right? But I was the all-time pitcher, right? And the key is you want to try to keep the games close, because when it was a blowout, that's when the kids got squirrely and out of hand. So,
Yeah.
The good kids, Jeff, I'd throw some fastballs, some curveballs, brush them back a little bit. The kids that were struggling a little bit, I'd lob them in there to give them some success. So it was a blast. I had a lot of fun doing it, but I wasn't challenged. At the end of the day, I'm an entrepreneur, and I wasn't challenged. And we had my wife, we just had our first kid at the time, and she was 6 months pregnant. I have two boys that are just under 14 months apart. And so I was a part-time agent. I was an entrepreneur, working hours outside of teaching and teaching till 3 o'clock. And for obvious reasons, the wife was like, "Hey, you got to pick one, man. We need you home more. We need you on board." And so, 20 years from now, you'll regret more in life what you don't do versus what you did. That's a Mark Twain quote. And so I'm like, you know what? I got to follow my passions. My family came from blue collar. They thought I was nuts stepping away from a base salary and a pension. But I wear it on my sleeve, and I'm like, I have to follow my gut and what I want to do.
That's amazing. And going back to the person that you did the deck for, who I guess essentially got you into the business, did you start with that brokerage?
I did not. So he was independent. I started with I did some due diligence, right? And I ended up starting with Coldwell Banker. They were number one in the town I live in, Wheaton, Illinois at the time, and big brand, and borrowed credibility. That's one thing I teach agents that break into luxury. If you don't have those luxury sales, how can you leverage other people's successes, OPP, other people's properties? And so I was able to leverage the brand. And I had a mentor, Robin Vandiver. She's a sweetheart, still friends with her today. And so I leveraged the brand to help get me out of the gates. But, my first 5 years in the business, I averaged a little over $8,000 a year. The first year, zero, and year two, a little bit more, but I averaged 8,000. My first 5 years, made 40 grand in 5 years. But I looked at it as, heck, if that's the equivalency of coaching one or two more sports. But then the light bulb went off, and I started putting more time into it, and I invested in coaching. My first coach was Joe Stump, by referral only, and Dean Jackson. And I started to put systems into place, and we got traction, and the rest is history.
Man, that's really cool. So what was that light bulb moment, or that moment when you started to shift to luxury? So the educational piece makes sense, right? And actually, you know what, before I ask the luxury question, you mentioned that you became a top producing agent while you were still working another job. How did you accomplish that?
Yeah, I wrote a book once, how I became a top producing agent working part-time hours. And so I was really big into branding and marketing. Like when I had that deck business, I would offer free power wash and stain to people that lived on a busy road with a fence. And I would power wash and stain the second half of it and put an after sign. And the first half of it would be gray and mildewy, and before and after. And so I've always thought like a marketer. And that's one of the things, Jeff, that we teach agents. Don't think like a real estate agent, think like a marketer. And so I've always, and I'm not shy either, right? I tell agents, shy real estate agents have skinny kids. You can't be shy in this industry. So like we would door knock and offer free estimates for deck cleaning. So sales was something, and entrepreneurship was something I was good at. I understood marketing. So how I became successful as a part-time agent is I invested in marketing. I put myself out there. I went a lot of networking events and to build relationships with business owners, and business owners have a lot of clients. And if I was likable and became trustworthy, I was top of mind awareness versus the other part-time Paul or part-time Patty or Rockstar Rick and Rockstar Roxanne. If they weren't likable, I was more likely to get the referral from that business owner.
I love it. And so, okay, so now let me go back to the question I just asked, which was, okay, at what point now, or what caused that shift, other than maybe the obvious, and maybe it was the obvious, but what's the answer? Like, what caused the shift into luxury?
Well, I wish I would have known today what I knew then. So for me, the shift occurred about 10 years after I got licensed. And I thought a lot of the limiting beliefs that many agents listening or brokers think, right? I have to be with a certain brand. I got to be licensed X amount of years. When I got licensed in 2000, I owned a townhouse, right? I didn't have a luxury home. So I thought I had to have a big home or be in that zip code or, gated community, drive a nice, really nice luxury car. And those are all false, Jeff. And so for me, I had a coach, and I've read a lot of books, and you talk about marketing to the affluent. If you're going to sell nuts and bolts at a little hardware shop, but you offered a big grill, that was huge on Father's Day, and it was, and you sold a couple of those grills, they call that a slack adjuster. Those couple big products made up for all those little nuts and bolts. And so I looked at my homes that I represented as a portfolio, and I, like most, started out and doing the entry level and starter or average price points, but I wanted a couple slack adjusters. I wanted to add some high end and some luxury to help my bottom line without necessarily selling more homes.
Yeah. And so what was your strategy then? Because you probably didn't know then what you know now. So how did you attack that in the beginning?
In the beginning, how I attacked it was canceled and expired mailers. So when a home comes off the market, it's no longer listed, that's an expired listing. If a seller maybe fires the agent or the agent fires the seller, they call that a canceled listing. And so I invested in coaches that kind of taught me that, and I did a lot of direct mail. Some people hire call services. Well, I sent direct mail. And so, some basic tips, right? I hand wrote them. I had my nanny handwrite them, put a live stamp on there. I'd send silver platters when I was going after luxury. I'd send bank bags. I'd send shredded money. I would have humorous letters, stuff to stand out, so that if they're getting 5 to 10 mailers, they're probably only getting 5 to 10 agents sending them one mailer. Maybe a couple send 2 or 3. I was sending 2 or 3. And I was sending some obnoxious. When I say obnoxious, not rude or anything, but funny, different. I sent one letter from my dog at the time, Hannah, and it was a letter from Hannah to the frustrated seller. And the letter was talking as if it was coming from a dog, just weird, different. And I'd have agents say that won't work in this market, or that's cheesy. But I got the phone to ring. I get the hook, right? How are you going to get somebody's attention? And I'm a big believer, when everybody is going left, you go right.
Gosh, I love everything that you're saying. And that really is, if you asked me just off the cuff and said, will that work in luxury? I'd cringe a little bit, because I would think to myself, luxury is, the luxury homeowner might be a little stiffer. They might be a little more hoity-toity. They might be more of a, like you said, you better be driving the fancy car like me and wearing the fancy suit like me and dressing like me and looking like me if I'm going to use you. And you're telling me and our listeners that that's not true. I love that. So talk a little bit about that.
So we really specialize in those average to the upper price points initially with our mailers. And then we develop so many testimonials and case studies, right? And so I wasn't necessarily going after those $1 million, the luxury or the ultra luxury at that time. But when I made the shift to go after those, I leveraged my sales in the high end and say, those systems work in this price point, they'll work with you. If you want to go with the traditional agent, like the house that's on the cover of the house that's on the cover of the book I wrote called Luxury Listing Specials, this was Architectural Digest most beautiful home for sale. When that seller was interviewing me, I was the third agent. A lot of times, Jeff, in real estate, they say you want to be the firstborn, the second wife, and the third listing agent. Well, I was the third listing agent on that property. And And so I flat out, when he asked me how many homes have I sold in this community, at the time I hadn't sold any, but I said, listen, if you want the traditional local agent like your first agent was, your current guy's more of a city guy, but I'm not that agent. But if you want someone that's creative, that's outside the box, that does some really aggressive marketing, and I shared with them some of the things I've done, then you're talking to the right guy.
Interesting. And that won it.
Yeah, I mean, he liked my creativeness and tell your story. Most people are embarrassed by their story. They don't like to. I mean, I was a former gym teacher. I got a 19 on my ACT, Jeff. I ran marathons, but I was a scholarship player. So I interweave that in my story. Like, hey, I had to work as a teacher. I had to work with people from all types of personalities. I built a successful business as a part-time agent. So time management and marketing and developing systems and processes was something that we did. And I've run 11 marathons. I got a scholarship playing college football when I wasn't the fastest. I did it through hard work. And so if you want somebody that's dedicated, it's got amazing work ethic, I'm going to take those same principles that I learned on the football field, or fill in the blank, fill in the blank, fill in the blank, and I'm going to apply them to you. You know, I just did a training out in Granite Bay, California, for a guy named Brent Gove. There were 200 agents in the room. A handful of the agents were newly licensed. Some weren't even licensed, but I had a guy that cut hair for over 20 years, forgot his first name. And he asked me, what story would you tell? And so I literally could take your listener's story, whether they're new to real estate, their experience, whether they're with a boutique or a franchise, whether they just went through a terrible divorce, and I could take that story and craft it into a unique value proposition. But most people don't feel comfortable telling their story. And so you have to really grow your confidence. I tell agents, if you grow your knowledge, your confidence will grow. And so one of the ways you can grow your knowledge is listening to this podcast. What are you reading and what are you listening to, and who are you surrounding yourself with? You hang out with 9 dead broke agents, you're bound to be the 10th. If you hang out with 9 top producers, you're bound to be the 10th. So these are all things that you have to interweave into your story, into your appointments, into your branding and your marketing and your Facebook page or your educational YouTube videos, whatever it is you do or should be doing.
Should be doing, keyword. I love it. You're debunking a lot of things here. And number one, as I think a lot of agents just automatically assume, well, I have to lie about who I am and what I've accomplished. And you're saying false. And this probably doesn't, well, it doesn't apply to just luxury. Clearly, if it works in luxury, it's going to work for everybody else. But my question would be, you know, it's you're leaning into your authenticity. It's something we preach about social media and branding and marketing, and you're speaking my language here. And you said it, you said it best. Like somebody said, I was a barber for 20 years. How am I going to use it as their story? I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So for the agent who is asking the question right now, Michael, I don't have that. I have nothing in my past. I'm boring. I was a stay-at-home mom. I'm just retired from a 9-to-5 receptionist position that I don't have a good story. What are you telling to that person?
So that person, you want to leverage your brokerage. You want to leverage your team. You want to leverage other people's properties until you have your own. So first they got to work on their mindset and their confidence and their knowledge. That's something they have to work on. We all need to, right? In this industry, there's a lot of ups and downs and peaks and valleys, and throughout the day, right? You log into Facebook, somebody lists their home and you sold it to them and they didn't list with you, right? I mean, we get kicked in the shins in this industry. In the mortgage business, you work a file, and then they go silent. What happened? Oh, somebody gave us a better rate. Well, you didn't even allow me to talk about closing costs or whatever. It stings, and it should sting if it doesn't get out of the business. So throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, you have to always work on yourself, right? And life pulls you down. Life is like Fortnite, the game that's grossed more money than any game ever, right? In Fortnite, you build this arsenal, and if you get hurt, my kids played it. That's how I know it. And you drink this drink, and you get your energy back. Well, throughout the day, your energy drains, right? And ups and downs and emotions. You have to build yourself up, and that's through podcasts, through what you're reading, through working out, through spiritual, all those things. But while you're doing that, Jeff, how you build your book of businesses, I teach this concept from Naughty by Nature, not the same kind, but leveraging other people's properties. So as an agent, if you're a newer agent and you're with Remax, Coldwell Banker, a big franchise, or you're with an independent, you can leverage other people's properties within your community. And so what I mean by that is, in a lot of areas, they still do caravans or broker tours throughout the week. And so if you check with your MLS, your real estate board, they can show you how to do this, but you can go to other people's upper price point properties, gain some knowledge and some confidence. And, if Jeff, if you and I were to role play and you were the listing agent at, 123, Medina Way, and I saw you had a broker open in 3 days, and I called you, and you don't know who I am. I've never had a conversation with you, but I ring. You there, Jeff?
Oh, sorry. I'm not even answering the damn phone. Hello.
Hey, that's for sales. You got to pick up the phone. That's a whole nother topic. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Mike LaFido here. And I see you have this broker tour coming up on Thursday. Awesome property. Congratulations on that. And I'm hoping to attend. I just wanted to give you a quick call. I'm a newer agent. I'm a seasoned veteran. I got 3,000 friends or whatever it is, fill in your blank, whatever you're comfortable. But Jeff, I know you and I don't know each other that well, but I'd love to attend. I'm not telling you I have a buyer, but I'd love to highlight your home. I'd love to tag you and include the single property website for you. And full disclosure, that I'm not the agent, but it's Jeff Pfizer's property. But I'm all about win-win. So I'd love to get you some exposure and clearly, tag that you're the agent. In return, I'm hoping that one of the buyers be like, hey, cool property, send me more information, Mike, or whatever it might be. I thought I'd give you a call about this Thursday and just run it by you first, if I can do that, and take some photos, and I would tag you on everything, so it's clearly listed as you are the agent of record.
I think this is a brilliant strategy, especially for a young, maybe struggling agent. And I don't understand, and I'm going to ask you the question about how I should reply if I'm going to object that, because it baffles me that any listing agent would ever object to someone else promoting their property. But I'm sure they're out there. But I would imagine it's 1 out of 10. Why does somebody object to that? And let's help them overcome that objection.
So somebody objects to that because they think, and this has happened to me, I had a record sale in a town called Naperville, Illinois, a few years back, 4.75. And I'm on Facebook, and somebody forwards me a guy's post that was at my same brokerage, but posted it as if it was his listing and my video. And so that's why I addressed Captain Obvious, the elephant in the room, in my role play with you. I said I would clearly list you. I'd include your link, right? So I'm not trying to deceive, but the reality is most people don't read. So as they're scrolling, what's going to happen anyways, they don't read, but they see me at your property, and they don't even see that I tagged you or I clearly stated throughout the video. And then if you're consistent with this, then all of a sudden they see, man, Michael LaFido, every week I see him at some cool properties, and they now associate you not just with entry level, but wow, this guy also does some upper price points. So getting back to your question, some agents have a scarcity mindset. They don't understand it. So that's why you have to address it and say, hey, I'm not going to go out there and say, this is our listing. You could be with another brokerage, and you can go to another broker open and promote somebody else's properties and clearly tag them. So that would be the first free strategy I'd have for your listeners today.
So back to this conversation about the objection, though, is even the agent, and I'm asking just, I guess, some rudimentary questions here, but why would I even care if somebody was trying to deceive their audience and portray themselves as the listing agent? Because it's not going to affect anything. If they get a buyer, I'm still the listing agent. So why do I care?
You have, especially in those upper price points, you have some high maintenance clients, and if their girlfriend or somebody sees their property with, part-time Paul marketing it, hey, Mike, I paid you to market my home. Some people don't get it. They're like, why is Paul marketing? And the guy hasn't sold a home. Or my neighbor knows Paul, and he's newly licensed. He's whatever. He's not a great agent. And I hired you, like, and some people don't get it. So that's kind of why some clientele, especially in those upper price points, are more uh,
Sensitive.
sensitive. They're a little bit more, I guess, the discreet, confidentiality wise, whatever it might be. But either way, most agents opt into broker reciprocity, where my listings are going to be on Coldwell Bankers and Remaxes, even if, right, and it clearly states, just like on realtor.com or Redfin, listing provided by Jeff Pfizer, Pfizer Media, Realty, or whatever it might be, right? So there is broker reciprocity where my listings are going to be on other people's websites, but you really should get the agent's blessing and permission to do what I just did in that scenario.
It goes back to what you were even saying earlier about, as an agent, you need to think of yourself as a marketer. I say that when I speak, and I tell agents, I'm like, you need to think of yourself as a media company first. You're a real estate agent second, because that's the reality. And so my marketing mindset says, I mean, yes, I get it. Like, I don't want to piss off the seller, but at the same token, I would go back to my seller and be like, this isn't a bad thing. Like, the more visibility we get for your listing, the more opportunities that we might get to get a buyer. And I mean, if it was me, and this is what we teach people all the time, is that one of the many reasons you should be growing a social media following is to use that as a bullet in your gun when you're at your listing presentations, to say, look at how many people I'm touching and how many eyeballs I'm getting, even though that's likely not going to ever sell a property, but
Right.
Perception is reality, right? And
Sure.
it makes you look good. And so I don't know. That's
No, you're right.
neither here nor
No.
there.
No, you're right. So that's the one strategy I recommend, is leveraging other people's
Love it.
properties with broker opens. Like I said, I just released our 200th podcast a few weeks back. I think our 63rd podcast, I had a Compass agent, Amit Bhutta, and he talked about when he broke into luxury, that's what he would do. Weekly, he'd go to other people's broker opens, get their permission. Some people would say no. He'd go to the next. Somebody will say yes. And it helped grow his knowledge and his confidence. Number two was other people's open houses. So I had an intern for me last year. He was going into his last year at college, and he just graduated, and he moved to a brand new state, a new market, and he got his license. His girlfriend took a job in Nashville, so he followed her. He's been licensed for probably 4 months now. He sold one home, and it was to her. Her parents helped out. She bought a $700,000 property straight out of college. And but I share that with you because the second strategy, he just got a $2 million to $5 million buyer from. So Dugan, who was my intern, Dugan hosted an open house at somebody else's listing. That's the second tip. Number two, in Illinois, it's got to be a listing within your own brokerage. If you can't host an open house at Remax if you're a Coldwell Banker in Illinois, but he's in Tennessee, and apparently it's different there, and every state's different. So he hosted a $4.2 million open house a few weeks back at another brokerage's listing, new construction. He had 20 couples come through, 20 people come through. Even if 5 weren't represented, and even if 2 weren't working with an agent, and you land 1 out of 2 because you're really nice and you have good follow-up, that's what happened. He's got a buyer right now. He's taking out from $2 to $5 million because of an open house that he hosted at somebody else's listing. And he told me, he goes, Mike, agents are lazy. I'm calling these agents with these amazing properties, and they're not understanding why I'm willing to do this, because they don't get these calls frequently from other agents.
It's amazing.
So that's the second, is hosting open houses, get in front of buyers on weekends. So broker opens during the week, grow your knowledge, and your confidence will grow, and your database and content. And then on the weekends, open houses. And then the third is leveraging successes within your brokerage, or leveraging unique properties. Sylvester Stallone, I think it was Forbes, it was on Forbes, he listed his home, 50 plus million. That was interesting. So I posted about it. It had nothing to do with the brokerage I'm with. But then if somebody within your brokerage has a successful sale or a trophy listing, Jeff, I see you got this amazing listing at 123 Elm. I saw the Chicago Tribune just did something on it. Would you mind if I posted about it and say, hey, look at what Jeff from our office just listed. So again, leveraging sales locally as well as outside the area. If it's outside the area, why might I do that? You're in St. Louis, and if there was a record sale in St. Louis from someone in our group or in our brokerage, I might say, hey, check it out, record sale in St. Louis. Don't forget, although I'm only licensed here in Illinois, I can refer you and make introductions to top rock star agents, not just in all 50 states, but across the world. Reach out to me as your global real estate advisor.
I love it, man. I mean, I think, and I was going to reference too, we did a podcast not too long ago. It was a few months ago, a guy named Tyler Hassman. He was based out of Canada, and he's built his business, only been in it at the time. He was the spring. So he'd only been in the business about 6 months. He's coming up on a year. And that's what he's done. He's a TikTok guy, and he goes to mostly builders, because builders are more open to this, but he goes to listings, creates some cool TikToks, ends up driving all kinds of engagement, gets all kinds of buyers reaching out to him. And he has grown a business bigger than most 10, 15, 20-year agents in less than 1 year, just by executing on this same strategy. That's episode 165 if you want to go listen to it. But that's how you do this. And Michael, I love that you shared that, because not only is it timeless, it's those strategies are evolving to where you can use, you could actually take some skills that a lot of agents don't have, which would be simple skills, like maybe some basic video editing skills, like using Instagram Reels, using TikTok, and really help, grow your buyer base. So, but this is for that agent who says, I don't have a story. So now let's graduate. Let's move forward a little bit, because I assume you're not doing this anymore.
No.
And
So now, actually in the last 6 months, we've started doing some marketing again. When I say marketing, prospecting, I believe that there's two forms of marketing. There's warm marketing, your database, your sphere, people that know you, like you, trust you, relationships, and cold marketing, i.e. prospecting, lead gen. I haven't done any prospecting in years, but I did crank it up recently because I have a couple team members that say, hey, I'm ready, and their conversion's been really good. So I subscribed to some companies, and some companies, by the way, charge a huge upfront and a smaller referral fee. Others charge a little bit upfront and a bigger referral fee. Those are the ones that I recommend to our listeners, because they have more skin and more motivation to get good leads. I mean, I paid one company 10 grand recently to produce appointments, and they're just terrible Zillow leads that aren't realistic. They don't want to talk to anybody. So that would be my free tip for you. But we are trying to raise the bar for the industry, not just through our podcast on the consulting side, but as a real estate agent. So I'm producing a lot of content videos for buyers, for sellers, for market updates through our blog and through leveraging the various social media channels, i.e. YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
so go a little bit more in depth about that. So what does that strategy look like when you say you're creating content? What does that look like that's going to potentially attract more luxury?
The Fed just raised short-term interest rates 0.75 basis points again last week. That's a second rate in the last month. How does that affect you if you're thinking about buying a home or selling a home? Well, there's a lot of misconceptions out there. If you heard recently, the Fed raised rates. That does not affect mortgage interest rates. So when we say the Fed just raised rates 0.75%, that doesn't mean mortgage interest rates went from 4.5 to 5.25 or 5.25 to 6 or whatever the rate is. It's for short-term loans only, i.e. home equity line of credit, cars, etc. Mortgage rates are more affected by the bond and what the bond. So again, that would be an educational video on rates. So that's a time video that is sensitive to some recent news. So that's one example. Another example might be, hey, summer's over, school's approaching, thinking about selling, or maybe you are selling. Should you hit the pause button and reconvene in early 2023? And so I might talk about why I think that's a bad idea, because if somebody has to buy a home in the St. Louis suburbs or Chicago or wherever you're listening, again, Wayne Gretzky says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, Mr. Seller. And if there's a hot to trot buyer, yes, there's less buyers in the fall. Historically speaking, there's more buyers in the spring season than there are in the fall winter season. But would you rather be one of 13 homes on the market this fall or one of 38 in the spring? I like our chances at 1 in 13 versus 1 in 38. So that would be an educational video why they might want to keep the home on the market or list in the fall. So these are all educational videos. And I think about it. You come across commonly asked questions in the mortgage industry, whether you work with buyers, sellers, renters, investors, there's commonly asked questions, Q&A, that consistently come up. Those are your topics right there. And even if you did one 9 months ago, do it again.
Yeah.
And so consistently address commonly asked questions and time relevant for buyers, for sellers, and market updates. Now you can do investors and showcase local towns and testimonials and all those are a little bit more advanced. But if you want to keep it really simple, if you do one tip a month for a buyer, one tip a month for a seller, and hey, today's, here we are in August, you could do August real estate tip of the month, and then do September's next month, and that's 3 a month. That's 36 in a year. That's 72 in 2 years. It's 144 in 4 years. Again, you'll be better off than the competition. It's not a big rocket science, scientific poll I take, but when I'm in front of a room, I'm, like when you and I were at NAREB, the old raise the hand. And I'm telling you, pre-COVID, 10 to 15% of agents were consistently putting video out there. They had a YouTube channel and they've posted at least a couple videos on their social media and YouTube in the last month. Now, post-COVID, more people are comfortable with video. Call it 20, 25, that would be high, but call it 20 to 25. That still means 75 to 80% of your competition isn't doing it. It's not too late.
So, and what is the correlation to what you just described in luxury, or is there any?
So luxury, the correlation is, people are going to do their fresh eyes analysis. They're going to Google you. They're going to look you up. They're going to look at your branding, right? So you want to look the part. You should be providing some content that's relevant to those upper price points. If I went to an agent's website and current listings and, they're all, in the 100s, and I'm branding myself as a luxury agent, and I look at recent sales and they're all in the 200s and 100, you're going to have a little bit more difficulty. So you got to do some more prospecting and lead gen and just get opportunities. And some of those opportunities, Jeff, would be, joining chamber in those price points that those homes are, and then build relationships with the business owners. That's how I broke into luxury. I joined the chamber in Hinsdale, Illinois. I joined a luxury office. I did some coaching for that office, and I quickly realized that, shoot, these agents are selling a lot of $1 million homes, and I'm a better marketer. I just need to plant my flag in this neighborhood and do some marketing and some networking and get to know some business owners so that I'm top of mind awareness.
I love that. Going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, which was, kind of debunking the myths, and I think a lot of people just assume you have to look a certain part and play a certain part in order to get into luxury. Was your mindset when you went into this with unique marketing, for example, which I would argue probably very few agents have the cojones to attempt that, just because it goes against, societal trends or whatever you think the industry says you're supposed to do. But would you say that that's almost a niche down strategy, to the effect where it's like, you're not going to be everything to everyone? And I realize when I'm sending goofy, marketing stuff to these houses and a letter from my dog, that there are going to be some of these hoity-toity luxury homeowners that are going to look at me and be like, you're an idiot. But that's okay. I don't want to work with them anyway, because they're probably not going to choose me, because they're going to choose the historical agent who has the reputation. I'm going for the person who's more like-minded, who finds my content comical and they feel like they can relate to me. Is that what?
Yeah, I mean, so I gave some examples. Those are maybe extreme examples, right? But the reality is, you need to know what keeps that consumer awake at night, right? So if somebody let's talk about canceled and expireds in this example. What keeps that canceled and expired awake at night? Their home was on the market once or twice, it didn't sell. So there might be some embarrassment. Friends think their home's overpriced. Why didn't they like the last agent? I didn't hear from them. They didn't market my home. They threw a sign in the yard. The only time I heard from them was to lower the price. So my message in these mailers was, reminding them of those things indirectly. Hey, listen, if you're looking for a traditional agent that's a local agent, does it part-time or belongs to the country club and just networks, and that's how they think your home's going to get sold, I'm not that guy. I sent a packet of aspirin. I would have aspirin, a picture of aspirin. Why am I sending you an aspirin? Because I know selling with a traditional agent, I put traditional in quotes, has been a headache, and I want you to avoid hiring another traditional agent. So traditional was the bad guy. It's Apple versus IBM, right? Steve Jobs and his presentation secrets, right? It's good guy versus bad guy. It's traditional agent versus marketing agent. And that's how I think, that's how I believe. So when I'm talking to real estate agents, I'll talk, hey, listing, get the listing. But when I'm talking to a consumer, I never refer to their home as a listing, or I'm going to list your home. I'm going to market your home. There's a calculated difference.
So going back to the question, when you're talking to someone who is looking to crack in, and I'm just thinking out loud, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, because as I'm kind of a think outside the box guy just with you, and I like to be different, but most people aren't cut from that cloth. But the reality is, the agents who are listening to this, if you try to crack into luxury and do what the luxury agents are doing, you're going to be you're going to have an uphill battle that you may not be able to overcome, because you're competing against people that might have sold 50 luxury homes in the last few years, whereas you don't have that. So if you don't think outside that box, it's going to be a hell of a lot more challenging, or you're just going to straight lie. And I don't think that's going to work either.
No. So you want to always be upfront. So if Jeff, you were the seller interviewing me and I didn't have a lot of track record, I would leverage my brokerage. And if my brokerage had a lot, so many people, if I were to have interview 100 different people and say, define what a team is in real estate, you'd probably get 50 different answers, right? So, this is where you could say, hey, one of my team members, I haven't sold any in this neighborhood or in this price point, but one of a team member or someone in my office has, and I've already talked to them about your home, and we already have some ideas going, because I probably would talk to them beforehand. I might not disclose the address, but I would talk to some things. The other thing is, you can address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is, Jeff, you're going to have some choices of other luxury agents. Matter of fact, there's 2 in this neighborhood, and I know they sell 90%. But you're going to be just another property to them, where for me, you're going to be my trophy property, my trophy client. You're going to get me. You call me, you text me, you're going to get me. You're not going to get an assistant. This is not just another listing. Matter of fact, there's a home in my market that was $15 million. That one of the top 2 or 3 agents in Illinois had it. I was up against her. I knew statistically she would blow me away. I think I did 38 million last year, 30 in listing volume, average list price $1 million. That's doing no advertising and doing more training consulting, right? She did over 100 million, right? So it was not even close data wise. But you don't badmouth the competition, but I knew going into it that this was not going to be a trophy listing for her. It was in a town that she didn't necessarily enjoy selling, and she didn't know the town. Another team member was going to be there for the showings and not her. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I ended up showing it a couple times to a buyer. I didn't represent the seller. We made an offer. That agent told the seller what they wanted to hear, 15 million. I told the seller 10 to 11 million. And she said I would never sell at that price. So again, that first agent got fired. I don't know if I'm considered for the second, but I'm not going to tell a seller what they want to hear. And so I tell that to an agent, to a seller, like, you're going to get me, but you are my trophy client. You're not going to just be passed on to a team member. Now, if you are a rock star agent and you're going up against an individual agent, then leverage the benefits of a rock star agent. So I would say, Jeff, we have 13 properties currently above $1 million. Your home is unique. It's different, but a lot of times, Jeff, we get boomerang buyers where they call on one of our other properties for whatever reason. They don't like that property. And guess what? I can say, you know what? Based on what you're telling me, this one you said isn't the right fit. Maybe you're talking to the buyer's agent, Mr. Buyer's agent. But I have this other one that sounds exactly what your clients are looking for. And you might want to take a look at that. So last year I sold the highest sale ever in the town I live in, Wheaton, Illinois. It was sold for 3.1, but the appraisal came in low, so 289. That buyer came through my other listing in Naperville, Illinois, and I was there for the showing, right? So many times in these upper price points, no lock boxes, listing agent must be there. And so I'm reading the buying signs, I'm listening to the feedback. And once I realized, and once they shared that that house wasn't for them, I spun them over to another. So if that's you, you can leverage that and talk about that other agent might be hungry and aggressive, but they don't have the buyers. We have the buyers, we have the magnets, the signs, and the internet leads. They call because we have the properties.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I love that. I think there's so much that somebody could walk away from in this podcast, and not to mention that they are going to have a new way of thinking about "Are You Down with OPP?" It's not just a '90s hip hop song
No.
anymore. It actually has real meaning.
Yeah, so like when we launched our designation in 2016, that's the feedback we get is like I launched it out of necessity. I've up until the pandemic, the luxury Chicagoland market has been literally 15 years of a buyer's market. And so it's like, do you want another listing? Because it's probably not going to sell, or you're going to battle the seller on, well, it was worth X, or it appraised one time for Y, but it's only worth this. So out of necessity, I had to be creative. I had to think outside the box. And that's really what we built our trainings on, is not thinking like a real estate agent, think like a marketer.
Yeah, I love that. What is the average price point in the greater Chicago area?
Yeah, so there's a lot of suburbs. So the suburbs that I live in, DuPage County, the average sale price is it's around $450,000. So I would define a high-end home in DuPage County as 2 times that average sale price. So 450 times 2 is around 900.
Mhm.
And I personally, for our course, our books, we define a luxury home as a home that is 3 times that average sale price. So 450 times 3, you're looking around 1.3 million. And then we define ultra luxury as a home that's 10 times the average sale price. So an ultra luxury property in the Chicagoland market would be 4.5 million and above. And so it's really important I share that with you, because luxury is all relative. I've done these
Mhm.
trainings. You might know a guy named Matt Fagioli, who used to run these
Mhm.
conferences called Explode. I did a training once in Kokomo, Indiana, and never heard of Kokomo, and I live in Illinois. I drove over there. I had a gal approach me afterwards, say, I'm so glad I came to your training. I was really looking forward to your session, but I was hesitant because we don't have $1 million plus properties here. But based on your definition and our average sale price, this is pre-COVID, 80,000. Now it might be 120, but their average price was $80,000 in Kokomo, Indiana. Based on your multiplication of 3, Mike, we certainly have a lot of 240s. We even have 300s and some 400s. We just don't have the $1 million plus. So relatively speaking, luxury, it's all relative to that given market.
Yeah, I love, I'm glad I asked the question, because you're right. I think a lot of agents are going to immediately just say, I don't need to listen to this because I live in a Kokomo, Indiana type area. And even I would say that in St. Louis. I mean, to get a 7-figure listing, I mean, yes, they exist. We're a big market, but it's not common, right?
Mhm.
We're probably a lower price point even than Chicago is. And the reason I asked that question is because you are Chicago, you are Midwest, which is not Malibu. It's not LA. It's not New York. It's not Miami. Where, we still, ride horses to work, but based on some of the way people feel about us. But I love that, man. And you've not only, I've used this word multiple times, but you've debunked a lot of things when it comes to luxury. Obviously, I mean,
Yeah.
you cracked in as a PE teacher. That's one thing. You cracked in to succeeding by being very unique in a time when unique marketing was not what it is today. Today, it's become mainstream, right? Doing goofy things, dancing in videos, that sort of thing. It's mainstream. What you were doing at the time was not. And I love that you did
Yeah.
that. And I hope that our listeners today got something from that to say, you know what, I am going to be willing to step outside that box, because what is the worst thing that happens if you send, again, I'm going to use this again, as a letter from your dog, right? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? The letter is going to end up in the trash, but odds are you're going to catch their attention because it's different. Right. And, I mean, I think that's phenomenal advice. So let me ask you one last, it's a couple last things. One is
By the
how
way,
to
I believe that you can put me in any market, and you could put me in Beverly Hills, in the Hampton, and I'd be a successful luxury agent because I'm creative. I'm outside the box. I question whether you can take out somebody from Beverly Hills or the Hamptons and they'd be successful in the Chicago suburb being a luxury agent, because again, we're a buyer's market. Wealth is leaving. It's much more difficult. And that's than in some of these. You could be a Miami agent and stumble across, a multi-million dollar buyer or seller a lot easier than you can in the St. Louis market.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally true. So what would be, what would be your parting thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, my parting thoughts are, again, what you focus on expands. So if you're looking to diversify the homes that you represent, whether it be buy side or sale side, and you want to go into those upper price points, you got to be more knowledgeable, which will help grow your confidence. And so whether that be listening to podcasts like this, what are you reading? What are you listening to? I would say your brand and your brokerage can help support you, but they don't have to. The brokerage I'm with here in Illinois is not a luxury brand. And it hasn't, I interviewed with the former CEO of Office Max, and he hired me over a brand that was very luxury, but he did his due diligence on me. So I believe you are your brand and your brokerage helps support you versus you are your brand powered by Keller Williams or Coldwell Banker. No, I think Keller Williams, Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's, whoever is powered by me. They need me, and I'm supported by them.
Yeah, 100%. And you've mentioned one of your books. You've authored what, 3 books? Is that correct?
Yeah, we've authored a few books out there: Luxury Listing Specialist, Marketing Luxury, Outside the Box, and then how I became a top producing agent working part-time hours. And then I was a contributor in several other books.
I love it. I love it. And I assume they can find all of those books on Amazon?
Yeah, on Amazon. Luxury Listing Specialist on Amazon, $30, 29 something dollars. And we provide a lot of free content out there, Jeff, just like you do through our podcast. It's called Luxury Listing Specialist. It's on iTunes and Spotify, Stitcher. And then we do a free weekly live streams called Luxury Fridays. You can go to luxuryfridays.com. Again, if there's a conflict, we might do it on a Thursday or a Wednesday or a different time, but we're consistent. About 90% of them are Fridays at 11 a.m. Central. It's a live stream through our YouTube channel. And a couple other menus. But if you go to YouTube and you subscribe to Marketing Luxury Group, you'll be notified of any upcoming live streams in real time.
That's awesome. And what's the best way to connect with you if they've got a question for you?
Yeah, email Michael at Marketing Luxury Group's a great way. Michael at Marketing Luxury Group is probably the best way. Or follow me on social media. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. You can Google my name, Michael LaFido.
Michael, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to these every time we get to connect. We need to stay in touch a little bit more consistently, I think. And
absolutely. You guys are doing some amazing things, you and Tristan. And one other thing I forgot, our designation, I get asked a lot, do I have to have sold a luxury home or two before I get certified in luxury? And the answer is no. So we'll work with you, whether you're a newer agent or not. I'm all about raising the bar for the industry, Jeff. And so I've had agents that were declined with other designations come over to ours, and they're so thankful because we don't have a prerequisite.
That's powerful. And if you don't take advantage of that, say it one last time. If they want to go get that designation, where are they going to go?
They go to luxurylistingspecialist.com, Luxury Listing Specialist. We have a calendar of events where our upcoming trainings are. Our next one is in September in Milwaukee. We've done 5 in person so far this year. And so yeah, go to luxurylistingspecialist.com.
Awesome. Michael, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lab Coat Agents Podcast.